There's nothing worse than coming home after a trip, realizing your footage is unusable, or uploading it to YouTube only to find out that the only people watching are your family, or simply being stuck in the edit because you didn't get enough shots. About as stuck like hitting a dead-end road like this one here. And I made all of those mistakes and a lot more. They really suck. So here are 7 of them and how you can avoid them. But it's actually good that we're at the dead-end road here, because there is a cave up that mountain where I saw some dusky leaf monkeys last time I've been here. So today I hope to get some shots of them. So our first mistake is a pretty big one actually, and I see it all the time. Like, I review videos for both my own online academy, but I'm also an instructor for Christian LeBlanc in his Lost Creators Academy. And I notice all the time there that people really tend to mess up the hooks of the video, which essentially means the beginning of your video. What I oftentimes see there is that people first spend like 5 to 10 seconds to show their logo, or you start with something like, hey, welcome to my channel, I'm Pascal, and stuff like that. Or you simply don't do anything, maybe you just don't say anything, you just show some shots, but no one really knows what the video will be about. And that is bad, because no one cares about those things. And the right way of doing that is simply that if you have an informational travel video, like 10 places to go in Thailand or something like that, that you tell the viewer why they should keep watching. Give them a reason. For example, if I would make a video called 10 places to visit in Thailand or something like that, I could start with a hook like, did you know that just a boat ride of 90 minutes outside of Bangkok you can see whales? Or did you know this temple that no one talks about but it looks so beautiful? Something like that, that makes people curious about what's coming in the video. And when it comes to story-based travel videos, that is essentially the same. You also want to make the viewer interested in the video to watch more. But in story-based travel videos, you do that in a different way, because there you essentially have to make the viewer care about you or whatever the video is about. And you can, for example, do that in a story-based travel video by telling the viewer something relatable, or maybe a big problem or so that he thinks, oh wow, this is hard. Or you could also introduce a way you feel about certain things and then go further into the topic and stuff. And the way to think about it is that in a YouTube video in general, and that includes travel videos, you have a hook, you have an intro, you have a middle part and an end. You can leave the intro out occasionally. Sometimes the hook already does the intro part as well. But the reason why I mention that is because, let's say you have a travel video about a trip you do to a certain place, and then your intro would be starting the trip. Like, you maybe grab your bags and the driver arrives, you enter the car and then drive to a certain place. This is rather boring to watch at the very beginning of your video, and people don't really know why they should keep watching. This is why in front of that intro you would put a hook where you clearly tell people why to keep watching. So it's super important. If you mess that up, your video will definitely perform bad. And if you've been in Thailand before as a backpacker especially, you probably know this breakfast here, those nice 7-Eleven sandwiches. Eat something first and then we can go up. Croissant with latte, nothing better than that. Switching to a normal lens now. Before you saw those black bars on top and the bottom, that was because I used anamorphic lenses there. This newest Zero anamorphic autofocus lens, 20 and 40mm. Now I have to wait another 20 minutes to go up, and I just think a normal lens like my 16 to 35 is better for vlogging, so I will be more flexible, especially on that one now. Anyway, let's talk about our second mistake, which is audio. Like, it is so easy to mess up your audio, and you probably did already. Now, what can happen, for example, is that you didn't plug the cable fully in. Like, sometimes it's just a millimeter out, or maybe even less, and you don't see that, and the audio doesn't record properly. When you come home and you recognize you can't use your talking head footage because the audio just is so bad. So you can go back again and re-record it, or you can't publish the video if you don't have an option to go there again. It actually happened to me quite a few times, and I know that it happens to many creators. And if your microphone has a cable, it can also sometimes be then picks some weird noises up. It's usually when you charge your camera at the same time while you're recording or so. It happens usually more when you're at home. It actually happened to me recently, and I had to completely re-record one A-roll in my studio because of that. And that's why I exclusively go for microphones that don't use cables anymore. Like right now, I'm using the ECM B1M microphone from Sony that solves that. It's a shotgun microphone and sounds pretty good. Of course, you're having a little bit of background noise here, maybe you can hear that. But aside from that, it usually does a really good job. And also the DJI mic 2, because it has this Sony camera adapter on it that connects to the hot shoe of Sony cameras. And therefore you also don't need a cable anymore. So you can completely cableless when it comes to audio now, because I messed it up too many times, and since I switched to cableless, I did not have any issues anymore. So if you can, if your camera system allows it somehow, switch to cableless microphones. And if you can't, if you shoot Panasonic, Fuji or so where you need cables, then do yourself a favor and always do a test shot first of like 5 to 10 seconds recording, listening to it, just to hear if your audio sounds good. You would thank me later. I think we don't even have to go up. I just saw the first dusky leaf monkey here. Looks like they are extremely common. So, camera out and let's get some shots. It's so good, you can just film them right from the road. They will still go up there because I feel like when I come closer they run away pretty quickly. But when I was up last time I got a lot closer to them. Maybe they're just used more to humans up there than here. Say you have a tight path, I don't know. But let's get some more shots first. It's nice. But I'm getting some shots of them. We can already talk about the next tip, which is that you should invest more in experiences than in gear, because ultimately every dollar you spend on gear is a dollar you can spend on experiences. And ultimately, most of your viewers at least will come for experiences, but not for the highest end camera or something like that. Of course, gear does matter to a certain degree, but it's not that you need to spend like $3,500 plus on a camera to get good shots. Like I recently, for example, used the Fujifilm X-M5 for $800, and that's great. I would not recommend it for travel though, because it doesn't have a stabilized sensor, so you're a bit limited. But if you get a Fujifilm X-S20 for $1,200, $1,300, or an Sony a6700 or Panasonic S5 Mark II, these are all good cameras that most people won't be able to tell the difference to pro cameras like my Sony A9 Mark III here. It's good for wildlife, fast stuff, sports. But actually for like most travel, this camera that I'm using here right now is also completely overkill. If you have a camera that shoots 10-bit in log, in 4K up to 60 frames per second and has a stabilized sensor, it doesn't matter which camera it is, then you don't need more, because most people won't be able to tell the difference. So definitely spend less money on gear, buy some good gear when you can, when you have a bit of money left. But aside from that, just spend it all on experiences and document that as much as possible, because that will make your videos good. Yeah guys, I'm not a threat. I don't do anything. Can't even climb those trees. Oh yeah, I should be quiet. That's your face, bro. I love those dusky leaf monkeys here. So you usually see those macaques here in Thailand, which are super annoying, always steal your stuff. But those one here are pretty peaceful, and they look beautiful, like their eyes, like this water they have around their eyes. Looks amazing. So the monkeys moved on. Time for me to move on too. Let's go up. I hope we see them again up there. Time for a little break. It's time to talk about the next mistake, which is over-perfecting shots. Like what I noticed recently, especially when a friend gave me some footage he shot of me while we've been out, was that he tried to make every shot so perfect that there is barely any usable footage left. And I especially mean that when it comes to camera movement and also framing or like putting foreground objects in your shot, etc. Because what he tried to do there all the time at first was to move the camera, like put in some really beautiful slides, and I appreciate that because camera movement usually makes your shot look nicer, but it's really complicated because you need a minimum of 3 usable smooth seconds within a clip where you move the camera, because otherwise you just don't have enough footage to edit that into your timeline and to the beat and stuff. And oftentimes even 3 seconds is not enough. Usually having 5 to 10 seconds of smooth footage is much better. And that's why usually when I get slide shots or generally move my camera, I do multiple takes, because then there's usually, if I do 3 to 5 takes, one in there that's usable, that has enough smooth footage in there. But if you only do one and then you try the next, most of the time you will probably mess it up, even if you have a lot of experience. And that is what happened to him there. Like, he tried to move the camera around, and oftentimes I just didn't get a usable part out of that. And then he also tried to frame the shots better by putting the camera behind some foreground objects, which I also appreciate. That looks nicer, but he forgot to tell me that he was filming me. And so every time he found out this perfect angle, I've already been done with my shooting or whatever I did there, and he didn't get a good shot of me. And that's why I think when you have such situations where you don't just shoot a landscape, where you have enough time to set everything up, if it's something that might only be there for a few seconds that you want to film, then get a steady shot first from whatever angle you're in right now, especially when it's important for your story or the information you want to give in your video. Just get the shot first, even if it looks average, because then you have the shot and you can use it later in the edit. And then if you still have time, then you can start moving your camera or look for some better angles, because you got the shot already and you have the time now. Or you could also just tell the friend or whatever person you film there to just keep doing whatever they're doing right now so that you can take multiple shots. It's so easy, you can solve that. Sometimes you have to take the perfectionism back a bit to get more usable footage. And I think that is also what makes vlogging and travel videos unique, because it's not all perfect. We also have this authentic aspect in there. And you don't often see that in movies. Like, even documentaries oftentimes look a bit inauthentic, even if it's filmed authentically, just because it sometimes looks a bit too perfect. So it's actually unique about what we're doing. For snakes, but I don't think I will be lucky. There's so many little gaps here where snakes love to hide. That would make a nice shot. You always see snakes in the moments where you don't have your camera ready, but then when you have everything ready, they don't appear. It's always like that. I usually see them from my motorbike. Come to the next mistake, which is related kind of to the snake stuff I told you before. And that is not having your camera in your hand, let's say at least 90% of your time, or at least not having it ready to shoot, because then you will inevitably miss shots. And this doesn't sound that important, but it actually is, trust me. Like, I've had a few years ago a client, a backpacking company, that quitted working with their old filmmaker because he essentially just joined the tours and had some fun there and occasionally got some shots. So his videos were not really good because they simply didn't capture enough footage. And when the boss saw me filming, like, it's extremely rare that you don't see me having a camera in my hand. He noticed that directly. And he also told me that you see that in the videos later, because there's so much more footage that I can use to cover everything. And that Even if you shoot travel videos for yourself, that totally counts, because the more footage you have to work with, the better videos you can make. Because you can always delete clips that you can't use in your video later, where it's just music doesn't fit or whatever, or the shots are just not good, doesn't matter. You can always delete them. But if you didn't get a shot, there's nothing you can do. You can't use it. Maybe you could recreate something with AI, but that's not a good way of doing things. Now, you might think like, hey, that's not fun anymore, always having a camera in your hand. But you don't always have to use the camera, of course. If you can totally have fun and enjoy your time during that trip. And you also, the more you do it, the more efficient you become with shooting your videos. Like, then you automatically see the shots that you need to get when they are there, and you don't have to think much about it anymore. So you spend less and less time actually using the camera. That's, by the way, also a good reason why you should either get my practical videography course or join my full Learn with Pascal online academy, because there we have videography drills where you learn very fast. So you also become more efficient by doing those drills for shooting your travel videos. So definitely check that out. You will find links to that in the description below. Sad that I didn't see the monkeys up there anymore. Would have been nice. Maybe I should just buy another tele lens, 600mm or so, that I can get a bit closer. That's like the thing with gear, especially if you get into specific stuff like wildlife. That's the point where you oftentimes need a bit more, but for general travel videos, not so much. Anyway, it's time to leave now. See you at lunch. Sorry guys, I didn't see you at lunch anymore because the background music in that restaurant was way too loud, and the audio in some parts of the video was already pretty bad because of the cicadas. Nothing we can do about that, but that brings me to the next mistake: giving up if you captured bad footage. You can still record parts later like I'm doing now, or just use voiceovers and still create a solid video. And for travel videos, I would say the most important thing is to capture a lot of B-roll. These are shots that show what you're talking about, because you can always record the talking parts later in your hotel room or even at home, and that totally works as long as you have enough footage to support what you're saying. Of course, vlogging on location is usually more interesting, but sometimes it just doesn't work out. So don't worry, just capture as much as you can, focus on a strong edit, and it will be fine. And last mistake you should not make anymore in 2025 is uploading low quality videos. I'm especially talking about resolution here, because I think every video you upload to YouTube should be in 4K these days, because more and more people watch on TVs and higher resolution just looks better there. On my channel, for example, about 40% of viewers watch on a TV, so chances are you might be watching on one right now, and I'm pretty sure you don't want to watch in 1080p on a big screen, right? But another quality mistake I often see is uploading in 60p. That's not ideal, because even with fast internet, 4K at 60 frames per second can lag quite a bit because the bandwidth is higher. So for travel videos, the max frame rate you should upload in is 30 frames per second to avoid lag on the viewer side. And if you're filming sports, 60p is fine since it actually enhances the look, but for travel, 30 frames per second is all you need. I personally publish everything in 24 frames per second because I just like how it looks better. And I know that might all sound a bit complicated, but don't worry, I've got 2 videos here where you can learn the basics of videography and how to make cinematic travel videos, so check them out. Also, take a look at my Learn with Pascal Academy to learn super fast. Link is in the description, and I will see you there.